Natürlich steht der CDU hinter Männer in Frauenhäusern. Na klar, dass das nur Nachrichten sind, ist für mich Wahnsinn, weil natürlich machen die das, weil es keine linke Politik mehr gibt in Deutschland. Wer hat das gesagt? Keine linke Politik mehr in Deutschland. Irgendjemand hat das gerufen. Nicht so lang her. Aber trotzdem wollen die Männer in Frauenhäusern. Oh, people, we are living in a simulation. For real. Only in a simulation does the NATO boss call Donald Trump daddy. It's fucking amazing. It's amazing. And then after that, I'm watching news on YouTube this morning, and they're the only, as far as I know, the only news channel, like actual news channel that like runs kind of like you're used to from television, that give actual news. You know what I'm saying? Okay, they give their opinions on stuff too, but they're pretty straightforward. They're not so biased. They're the only ones that don't spew propaganda. Now, there's a couple others on YouTube, but I'd consider those more podcasts. But this is like a real news channel. News, right? And okay, they got a new studio. I like the new studio. It's just, guys, the music is fucking horrible. Every time it comes on, I feel like I'm waiting for the queen to come around the corner, you know, in her little car and wave her hand and shit. It's horrible shit. I hate it. But news, good news program. I like it. I watch it every day pretty much. As a matter of fact, a lot of things I talk about, I get from them, like this. So on news this morning, they explained that there's an NGO, of course, which, as we know, are GOs, right? Everything the government says, it's the opposite of that. So when they say it's a non-government organization, it's a government organization because they're paying them. And the CDU is paying an NGO who is trying to lobby to allow trans women, which are men, okay? That's men. That's just a leftist ideology fake word for men, right? They do this with everything. Unsere Demokratie. Trans women, you know what I'm saying? And then you've got Lisa Powell sitting up there going, trans women are women, and that's all she's got. Okay, look, I'm getting real sick of having to talk about this, but because it's so insane that only in a world where it's a simulation could they actually be happening, these things, right? Only in a simulation can you actually have people that are getting paid with your money, who are trying to lobby the people that you elected to carry out your interests, to let men in women's shelters. Now, just to be clear for everybody that doesn't get what that means, this is not a gym where men should also not be allowed, also not trans women, because trans women are men, okay? All right? It's not changing rooms where also trans women should not be allowed because trans women are men, right? And now they want to allow them into women's shelters where women flee to if they get physically abused and they're by domestic abuse. If they're domestic abuse sufferers, women flee to these shelters to get away from their abuser. And now they want to let men in there. Guys, this world has to be a simulation. Okay? It has to be. We're living in fucking La La Land with this shit. Now look, it's not a law. They're probably they're going to try to make it a law, whatever. You know what I mean? It's probably not going to go anywhere, but the fact that there are people lobbying for it and that there's people who are voting for those that support those lobbying for it, that's a serious problem. You know what political party is not going to allow men in women's shelters or men to get into your daughter's changing room while she's changing for her sport event, where they will then be competing against her. You know what I mean? You know who's not going to allow that? The AFD, right? I guarantee you the AFD will never allow that. And even if it gets put into law now, during this government period, when the AFD gets in, as the next election, I can't imagine any reason why they won't. You know what I mean? It should be obvious to everybody on the planet that the AFD will get a full majority next election, and I'm here for it, right? So they're gonna make all those laws undone. When the AFD gets in, Selbstbestimmungsgesetz and all that shit, finished. So people, nobody in their right fucking mind actually wants to let men into women's fucking shelters. That's like letting men into women's prisons. That's insane, right? Because these are not pussy-ass men that are getting their ass whipped at home. They need protection. That's not who you're going to get. You're going to get perverts, autogynephiliacs, like a lot of the ones competing in sports right now. You know, Leah Thomas in America is trans, right? The swimmer. But that's an autogynephiliac. That's a person that gets off from being treated like a bitch. You know what I mean? No, they like being looked at as women. They like being treated like women, and it gets them off. It's their sexual fetish. And that's who we are catering to with this trans bullshit. You know what? Ask gay people and lesbians and bisexual people if they're all for it, for this trans insanity. They're not. They're not. The only people that are for this are leftist ideologues and morons in government that think it's the most popular thing because those people happen to scream the loudest. And that is a problem, right? The problem is our side, the people that are sane, are not screaming loud enough against it. So before it comes law, like before this actually turns into a law, which in Germany is absolutely possible, right? They're trying to fine people $10,000 for calling a man. If they call a man who doesn't want to be called a man, that's illegal now. Hey, fuck you, okay? Fuck you. Really, I'll tell you what. I'm going to make it short and sweet for y'all, all right? I tell you what. Go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try it. Hopefully, I don't have a sister, a mother, a friend in any shelter in Germany, right, being protected from her abuser. And one day, a fucking dude in a dress comes up in that bitch, and she just has to put up with it. Well, hopefully they don't call me and tell me about it, because I'll tell you what's going to happen, all right? It's not going to be great. It's not going to be great. So let's not let it get to that point where people like me actually have to put their freedom at risk to protect their loved ones from this madness, okay? Because I'll tell you what, at some point, and I say this every time I talk about this subject, right? At some point, this shit is going to hit the wrong dude. And what I mean with that is, the trans is going to go into the wrong locker room where daddy of whatever daughters are in there, right? When said, then that daddy would be me, and that daddy would be Donald Trump, like Mark Rutte said, right? Some dude goes into my daughter's locker room. We're going to have a fucking major problem. And there's not going to be any law or any fucking cops or any shit that's going to protect that person from me. I'll tell you that right now. Right? And I'm not the only one in Germany. I may be one of the few, you know? I may be one of the few. But there are people here in this country that just absolutely will not fucking have that shit. And you know what's funny is, at the same time that the CDU government that promised no more leftist politics, leftist politics are over, and then they fucking give your money to an NGO trying to allow men into women's shelters. That same government is also standing behind the Islamification of this country, right? oh, well, that's going to work out good. Just wait till we're under Sharia law and see how much more of this fucking trans shit's going to be happening. You know, the two ideas don't even mix. That's how stupid these fucking people are. They're supporting two different ideologies against the will of their own citizenry, right? And those two ideologies will be mortal enemies when they're the only two left. Isn't that amazing? That's how fucking dumb these motherfuckers are. That's how you can tell that politicians in Western countries like Germany don't think ahead at all. They can't. They're only worried about staying in power. That's it. That's it. Only. Like exclusively. Like they don't give a fuck about anything else. Right? That's why they don't bother to think longer than their fucking 4-year period that they're in office. Because they think, oh, this is going to make me popular. It's not. That's how you know they don't either they don't know what the regular people think or they don't give a fuck. And I think it's that they don't give a fuck. Right? And the reason they don't have to give a fuck is because, again, I say this also almost every video, the reason they don't have to give a fuck is because you people keep voting for these morons. And they know it. So they're like, hey, we can treat these people however we want. We can put men in their women's spaces and we can make them like it. And if they don't like it, we can force them to call that man a woman. Otherwise, we'll fine them. And if they don't pay the fine, we'll put their ass in prison. But we will let men get in their daughters' locker rooms, whether they fucking like it or not. Because you know why we can do that? Because we're going to get voted in again anyway. That's why they can do that. That's why they're doing it. Because they know the Germans are going to vote for these same establishment parties that are supporting all this insane shit to begin with. They know they're going to keep doing it. And I am almost 100% sure that because the rest of the world has woken up to this shit and are voting it out all over the fucking place, right? I can't bring myself to believe that this time the Germans have not also gotten the picture yet. I fully expect the AFT to get a fucking landslide win next election. I expect them to win in every election that takes place around Germany from here on out. Really. Because these establishment people, for whatever their motives are, let's forget about if they're doing it because they think they're doing the right thing, or if they're doing it for money, or they're corrupt, or they're just crazy, or whatever, it doesn't matter. The reasons don't matter. The fact is, they have proven time and time again that they are in it for another reason than the reason that they should be in it for, which is serving the interests of the people that pay the taxes in this country. That's it. Right? They don't owe any other countries any shit. They don't owe the other countries to be able to come send their people here. They don't owe foreign aid to any shit. They owe the voters and taxpayers of their country serving their interests. That's their fucking main function. And they don't do any of it. Right? They ignore that function completely. And then they sugarcoat that to the people and say, well, we didn't do our main function, but we tried to do this, and we did a little of that, and we gave away more free money to the welfare system, and look, we gave more money to immigrants, and, we did the self-stimulus gazettes, and then they act like they should be pat on the fucking back for it. And the Germans go, oh, wow, that's very good. Oh, they did something great. Right now, we've got the thing with the border in Germany. Oh, they've done like almost nothing. But just by professing that they're having border checks, the Germans are like, oh my God, they're really doing something about the immigrations. Look, they're trying. Dobrindt really wants to do it. Yeah, he probably really does. But what he's doing is not doing anything about fucking immigration. You know what I mean? Since that government's been in power, 7,000 asylum applications have been done in Germany. We all know that once they're here in Germany, they're never fucking leaving, whether they get accepted for asylum or not. We know that's the case. That's the facts on the ground. We know it. Right? So 7,000 people a month. You know what I mean? That's 84,000 people a year. Okay? That are coming in and staying in at this rate. Yeah, sure, it's gone down since last year. Fantastic. It's still too much. So you can't pat people on the back for doing a great job if they're not fixing the fucking problem. Goddamn. How hard can this shit be, people? Start voting based on results, for Christ's sake. And the results right now for the CDU have been utter shit. And they're just making it worse. Sure, you know, it's time for people to get creative here, right? You know, if you want a women's only space, a women's only gym, whatever, you put on there, on the sign, you change the sign from women only to biological women only. End of story. Start being creative. When somebody comes in that is not a biological woman, they get kicked out the door. Yes, you can discriminate based on sex. Absolutely. You have to change the wording, right? Because they're going to change the wording to, well, trans women are women. Okay, well then only biological women can come in this establishment. How's that? Start thinking creatively before it gets to the point where the only choice you have is violent defense of your loved ones. Because that's what this government is going to push it to. They're going to push it to that point with Islamism. They're going to push it to that point with immigration. They're going to push it to that point with trans leftist fucking moron bullshit. Right? They're going to push it to that point with climate change. They are going to keep pushing you people more and more and more to the point where a violent uprising will be the only answer, and nobody wants that. So please start pushing back right now. This is bananas. That's it for me for today. See you guys tomorrow.